Launching in July of 2020 and traveling nearly 300 million miles, the Perseverance Rover is going to be entering the Martian atmosphere on February 18th. And joining us right now, we have one of the talented engineers responsible for all of this. I want to get her title right. From the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, she is an Operations Systems Engineer. Joining us, we have Rachel Kronyak. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Just to kind of go back to that title for a minute, can you tell us a little bit about what that is? What do you do being an operations systems engineer for a Martian rover?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm actually a member of the science operations team for the Perseverance Rover. And my specific role on the mission is to sort of help design and implement the processes that we're going to be using to operate Perseverance once she lands on the surface tomorrow. And so once the rover is on the ground, I'll be working with the science team, the scientists and the engineers to sort of build the plans of science activities and observations that we'll be sending up to the rover every single day.
That is really exciting and cool. Well, and that's something else I want to talk about too. I mean, there's a lot, but talking about the rover itself. I mean, we've had rovers on Mars before, Curiosity, Spirit, Opportunity, and all of those. What makes Perseverance different from those, and what kind of advancements have we seen with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Perseverance is definitely the most sophisticated and actually the largest rover that we've ever sent to Mars. And that's because we have a pretty bold set of mission objectives that include the search for signs of ancient life at our landing site with Perseverance. And so to do that, we're carrying a set of scientific instruments that will be able to actually search for organic molecules and minerals within the rocks in Jezero Crater, our landing site, at a much finer scale that we've ever been able to do with previous missions.
Well, and so I want to talk about both the search for ancient life and the Jezero crater. I guess bringing up the crater in particular, what were the reasons, out of the entire planet that you selected this one crater to land on and have targeted that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Choosing a landing site for a mission like Perseverance is a really daunting task. And we'll be going to a place called Jezero Crater, which is a 28-mile wide impact crater that we actually think used to host an ancient lake and delta around 3.5 billion years ago. And this environment, with a lake and flowing rivers into the lake, was active right around the time that microbial life was actually just getting started here on Earth. So we think that if life also evolved on Mars, that Jezero Crater would have been a pretty great place for these little microbes to thrive. And so this landing site was selected because we think it's such a good place to search for these signs of ancient life.
I mean, if you do discover that, that's going to be one of the biggest discoveries in all of human history to discover evidence of life on another planet. What's that like for you, just being a part of this? How do you anticipate you'll react if you do find this?
Yeah, it's really is a daunting task, and it's an incredible challenge to be able to say for certain that we've discovered life on Mars. And so we've gone through exhaustive efforts with preparing and building the rover to make sure that everything that we're bringing with us is ultra clean, ultra sterilized, so that if we do find traces of life on Mars, we can actually confidently say that it's Martian in origin and not, microbes that hitched a ride to Mars on our rover with us. And being able to for certain say that we've found life on Mars is such a huge task. And we'll need to actually be able to bring those samples back to Earth to be able to say for certain whether or not it's 100% evidence of life on Mars.
So, say you do find, this evidence of life. Is there a naming process that goes through with that? Would it get a name? How does that work?
That's actually a really good question, and conversations like that are constantly going on at NASA and laboratories across the world. And I think with the Perseverance rover in particular, like I mentioned earlier, we really need to bring those samples back to Earth to be able to assess them, using the full arsenal of laboratories that we have here on Earth. And so with Perseverance, we'll actually be able to collect samples from the Martian surface and eventually bring them back to Earth. This is sort of the first step in a larger effort called Mars Sample Return, and we'll actually be able to bring these samples back to Earth so we can study them here in laboratories on Earth around the early 2030s.
Which would be amazing. I mean, and that's obviously, like you said, a step in a few missions that would be able to do that. Another big thing, though, is research to kind of further the goal of bringing humans to Mars. Can you talk about what some of the research is that you're doing with that and how you're preparing for that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Perseverance and the mission that we're sending with Perseverance is actually going to help us make several steps towards being able to support human exploration of Mars. Perseverance is carrying an instrument called MOXIE. And with MOXIE, we're hoping to demonstrate the technology to be able to actually take carbon dioxide molecules out of the Martian atmosphere and actually convert them into oxygen. And as you know, oxygen is a pretty critical component for human exploration and will be needed for life support for astronauts, as well as rocket fuel for astronauts sort of on the trip to and from Mars. And then also on Perseverance, we have an instrument named META, which is going to allow us to collect data about the atmospheric conditions at Perseverance's landing site. And so, for example, we'll be able to learn about the weather on Mars and how it changes from day to day and season to season. And we'll also be able to measure the radiation, the solar radiation on the surface of Mars with this instrument. And that's going to be super important for humans to be able to survive and work on the surface of Mars in the future.
That is so cool that you're going to be able to get all of that data. I kind of geek out about that stuff. Something I wanted to ask you. So it's just a couple of quick questions. I don't need a long answer for these, but just some Mars questions for you. So talking about bringing humans to Mars, is that something you would ever want to do? Would you want to go on a trip to Mars?
I would totally 100% go to Mars, but only as long as I can also come back to Earth, because Earth is pretty great.
All right. So, a lot of people ask about what your desert island soundtrack would be. What would your desert planet soundtrack be?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh man, I am a 90s kid, and so I'm a huge fan of Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. It kind of gets me pumped up to focus and to get some work done here on Earth. So I think I'd probably bring that along with me.
Yeah, I'm sure Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco would be stoked about that as well. And final question, what is your favorite movie about Mars?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would definitely say The Martian, because the book is also fantastic and they did an incredible job with sort of the scenery of Mars and, paid homage to other rovers and missions to Mars. But in general, also, I would add Apollo 13 into the mix. I know it's not a mission to Mars, but I think it really is a really good sort of reminder of what we do with NASA and why Perseverance is such a good and appropriate name for this mission that we're sending to Mars right now.
Well, talking about the mission too, getting back to that, February 18th, depending on when people are watching this is going to be going on. And you're going to be entering into the atmosphere. I know there's the 7 minutes of terror. There's all of this work that's kind of come into this. What can we expect as far as like watching the coverage, but also what's going to be going through your mind and your colleagues' minds during this?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. The 7 minutes of terror, I'll certainly be terrified. I'm a geologist, so I don't have anything to do with the actual 7 minutes of terror and all of the engineering work that went into the landing system. So we have 100% trust in our engineers. They've done an incredible job preparing for this moment, and so I'll certainly be nervous, as I think everybody else will be. But I think the excitement about the mission and all of the exploration that we'll do in Jezero Crater will outweigh the nerves, I hope.
Well, I mean, it's definitely going to be amazing watching this. And I got to say, assuming, and the whole world is rooting for this, that everything is going to be successful on this. How do you celebrate? How does a JPL engineer celebrate a successful landing of this? Is there champagne? What do you guys do?
Great question. Yeah, if you watched the Curiosity landing back in 2012, you could see all the jubilation of the folks in mission control. It's a little bit different, in 2021 with the global pandemic going on. So it's definitely going to be a much smaller group of people in the room at mission control at JPL. So I'll be here in my apartment, which is a little bit different. We certainly all want to be able to hug and high five and stuff like that. So we'll just have to be doing that virtually this time. So it'll still be super exciting, and we'll definitely still celebrate as a team.
Well, Rachel, I want to say thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. It's really, really cool. I cannot wait to watch all of this go down and see, all of your hard work and your teammates' hard work and all this research that we're going to get. It's really an incredible moment just in space exploration in general. And you're a big part of that. And that's really cool to talk to you about that. And I want to wish you best of success. And I can't wait to see it all go down.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Right here with us, we had Rachel Kronyak. So this is very, very cool. And if you want to follow along, of course, you can watch everything that's going down live. And if you want to find out more about us, of course, always hit subscribe and share. I'm Greg Nibbler for 2 Box Media.